I'm your host, Jack, your failure connoisseur, and today my guest is David Anierobi. He's a designer and web developer located somewhere in Amsterdam, but he's so much more than that too. He's passionate about education with a YouTube channel with 2.12k subs. He teaches tips about Webflow, and he has a mentorship program called Unlocking the Power of Webflow. So the man shares as much as he devs. He's a bit of a digital nomad. I actually met him a couple of years ago at the Barcelona meetup organized by Alex and Ballerine from Tambien Studios. And he freelances with clients, but also freelances with agencies. He's probably got one of the biggest smiles out there in the Webflow space. And his philosophy in life is, I can do all things if given the right opportunity and chance to, which is a beautiful idea. He's hustled and bustled to get to the position in life that he's in. But has it been easy? Has it always been predestined? Or has he had some faceplants and failures along the way? Of course he has. We're going to get into those today. The failures that are going to be discussed in this episode are failure number 1, not understanding the business of freelancing. 2, being too positive, making him lose a good gig. And 3, placing more focus on tools rather than people and connection. David, welcome to the Webflow podcast.
Thank you so much, Jack. I am super excited to be here with you. I always see the podcast clip on Twitter, and I'm like, oh man, I would love to get on here. Just
Hey, we have finally got you here. I'm super pumped for
yeah,
you to be here because I always see your videos on YouTube and stuff as well. And actually, fun fact, when I was starting Webflow and I was like looking at content online and stuff, obviously your face was there with your massive smile on the thumbnails and just positive energy in every video. So massive thanks to you. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, David, thank you for making the content that you have. So thanks to you. Before we get into this though, before we get into this whole podcast thing, I need to know the answer to an important question.
Okay.
What is your relationship with failure?
My relationship with failure, it's pretty simple. For me, I see failure as a part of a process or the process, because as people, as humans, we are all on a journey and there is no start to finish without, building capacity and character. And as you go through life, you definitely would stumble with failures and downtimes and all of that. So I don't see it as a destination or as a mark on someone. I see it as just a phase. You learn from it, you grow from it, and you pick up and you keep going. Every story from every successful person I have ever met, they've all had like failure, and that is what makes their story exciting, because you just can't come on to me and tell me, hey, you did this and that, and this is the end goal and this is how you succeeded and all of that, without telling me the failure factor. You have to fail, and that is just a part of the process. So yeah, I see it as a process.
I love that. Yeah. You can't have a good story without conflict.
Yeah,
And I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like you're going to hit
yeah,
roadblocks as you try and do something that's really
yeah,
ambitious. And that is just part of it. And embracing that and learning from it is the key, which is the whole thing about this podcast. And I interview successful webflowers like you because I've noticed that there's a real trend with how people who are successful in the Webflow space approach failure. They obviously are learning things for the first time at one point, just like all of us, but they've learned, they've carried on, they've implemented lessons from that in their journey. And as your website says, you are a problem solver. It says literally, I am all about one thing, problem solving. So obviously you approach failure in that manner. Can I ask you about a quote that I read? I can do all things if given the right opportunity and chance to. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and for anyone listening?
so it's pretty much straightforward. I believe in human capacity. I believe as humans, we can do all things, and we are not just the regular. I mean, we are animals, we are higher animals. And what makes us stand out or unique is the continuous learning factor as humans. Even animals have that, patterns. So what that means is I can literally do anything if given the right opportunity and time, just as anyone as well. As humans, I believe so much in people. I believe so much in myself. It just boils down to a company or a firm or an organization believing in me and seeing what I see in myself. So, if given the time, it could be mentorship, it could be a traineeship, it could be just anything. Anything is achievable as long as I have the brain, as long as I have the capacity, as long as I have, the
Positive energy,
energy,
maybe.
all of these things. So yeah, not just me, but then it boils down to one thing, belief. Lots of people have this misconception about themselves and esteem problem and all of that. So it just everything boils down to the mind. If you believe you can, then definitely you can. You just need time and you just need the right amount of training and the right amount of whatever. I mean, people go from not being a doctor to being a doctor after 6 to 7, 10 years or whatever. Nothing changed within them physically. It is just the mindset, the impartation of everything that they've accumulated in those 6 years. And after 6 years, they turn out to be a doctor, and all of that. Amazing doctors. So you cannot see someone and assume he is a doctor just by looking at his physical structure. You can tell that he is a doctor based on the things that he has learned and accumulated within the years. So you see, that's how I face situations. That's how I face problem. If equipped the right way, anything is achievable just by anyone.
God, I'm pumped up. I'm ready to go. We're 7 minutes in and I'm pumped. Tell me a little bit about this idea of other organizations and, people trusting you to do great work with them. Because I know that you've been a freelancer with clients, like individual clients, but also a freelancer with different agencies. Can you tell me a little bit about how you operate as a freelancer?
As a freelancer, I think the tag freelancer just started out of the blues because before now I didn't really know it was a thing. I didn't know that someone can just be a freelancer. I've always had the idea of working on my own, but I didn't really see it as being a freelancer. I thought maybe there is some certification you need to get before you get the tag freelancer. So yeah, the journey for me started years ago when I finished my university. I studied computer science. And as of that time, I didn't really know the path that I wanted to choose for myself. It was a long ride. I was trying to figure out what do I do next? What do I do next? Okay, computer science is broad. It's just, all over the place. You have to still pick a niche. Is it multimedia you want to do? Is it graphics design? Is it software engineering or whatever? So at that time, I fell in love with graphics because I've always been someone that love visual. I'm a visual person. I like beautiful things. I like art. I like pictures, good pictures, photography. I love good music. So I've always been that kind of person. So I'm like, okay, I could narrow down to graphics design because I love the idea of creating something from nothing. You know how an amazing billboard can be created from a blank canvas, the creativity that goes behind it and all of that. I'm like, okay, this is something I would love to do. So I started, researching, Photoshop, started with Photoshop 7, lots of like years ago. And I started figuring things out, started downloading videos on YouTube, started watching lots of videos, how to do this, how to do that. I was doing a whole lot. And within that period, I also saw myself reaching out to friends, starting off small businesses and all of that. I'm like, okay, hey, I could help you create your logo. Just you don't have to pay me, all right? Because I'm a nice person. So I will help them create logos. I will just do jargons, combine their names together, get their initials and all of that. So I would do that and they'll be like, this is good. And, I didn't know that I was building myself, learning the tool. As of that time, I was more focused on the tool Photoshop. I didn't really care about nothing else. I just want to get the job done. I was just all about myself, what I can do. I didn't care about asking the right questions, how to achieve what is it they want, or proper communication with people, friends. I wouldn't say clients; they are just friends or colleagues, or I didn't really focus on all of that. I just wanted to use the tool. I just wanted to master the tool and do something, and stuff like that. So I think I started like that, and I was doing it for a while. And that was the moment I realized that something was missing because it was exciting for me. I was doing it, it was something I loved to do. I did a whole lot. It got to a point I knew something was wrong. I needed to be more. I needed to do more because I kind of get bored easily with things. I get bored easily with tools. I think the one thing I don't get bored easily with is people because people are not things that you play with. People are people. So I can get bored easily with anything, but not just with people. So I got bored with what I was doing. I needed more. I needed to explore more things. I needed to explore more tools. I needed to know the business of what I was doing. I needed to know the principles. I needed to know how to do it better because I like to, start slow and just, skyrocket up. So yeah, I attended boot camps, graphics design. I took courses, trying to get better at it and all of that. Yeah, I got better eventually, but then I still didn't know more about the idea of freelancing. I just was doing it. At some point, I started charging peanuts for logos. I just wasn't focusing on the money. I was more focused on the outputs, on the results. I was more happy that I did something for somebody and he likes it or he or she likes it. I was more fulfilled knowing that I'm able to impact this person's life with, this design or this flyer or this logo and all of that. It got to a point, I think I participated in a particular foundation known as the Tony Elumelu Foundation, TEF. It was a grant as of 2019, 2018-ish. It was a grant I applied using graphics design as it's like an entrepreneurship program for young people to apply and win grants to like start up your business or your career or whatever, your startup. So I applied using, design as, a tool and all of that. And I got in. And that was when I also did lots of designing because there were like thousands of startup entrepreneurs. We're all on a platform, Telegram and WhatsApp and all of that. So I used the opportunity then to put myself in the forefront because I've always loved the idea of, putting yourself out there. It's my philosophy, it's part of my philosophy. Sometimes I tell people for the sake of your brand, because everybody somehow we are all brands, whether you like it or not, we are brands. I'm a brand, you are a brand. It boils down to how you represent yourself. Some people say, hey, I'm an introvert, I don't know how to. I'm like, do not do it for you. Do it for your brand. Do it for the sake of your brand. Don't be selfish. I know you don't like to do it, but if you say you want to go this far or meet this kind of people, meet this caliber of people, you have to do it. We are in the world of branding. I mean, but that's a story for another day. So I didn't even know much about branding. I didn't know much about all of that. But somehow I saw myself reaching out, selling myself. If I work for you, you have to write a testimonial on what I did. If you like, you genuinely, you have to say, hey, you love this, blah, 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 and all of that. So I would use that and use the job that I did, the logo, the assets, and all of that, and post it to the group. I'm like, hey, this is what I did for this client. This is what he says, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to get something for yourself like this, hit me up. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the idea or the concepts behind branding and all of that. But then it was working. I got lots of people reach out to me. I was the one that stood out amongst other designers, graphics designers that were like doing branding, quote unquote, even though I didn't know what it was then, for all of these entrepreneurs. And they were paying me and I was doing it. It was a phase of fulfillment for me because I was happy doing it. Let's not even go into the burnout phase because it was a mess. Like, I did not even understand the concept of burnout. I just wanted to work and get paid all the time. Just don't worry, I'm going to do it. I could take on 6, 7, 8, 10 projects. I was just doing it. I didn't really concern myself too much about my health, my mental health. That wasn't a thing then, though. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it
Okay.
was a.
Wow. That's a hell of a story. So you basically studied computer science, then you were like trying to work out your journey, you were making logos for your
Yeah.
friends, and then you went into this boot camp
Yeah.
courses, and eventually you were in groups of entrepreneurs that you were like sharing your work with, and then it came to burnout. Before we talk about other stuff in terms of like future, because we're going to get into the failures, and I feel like we might cover some of that then. How did you then do Webflow? Like you were doing design, that's all good, but then where does Webflow come in?
So the workflow started because, like I said earlier, I get bored with things easily. So I did graphic design for a while. Then I transitioned into product design. You know, product design became a thing, and I also got interested in it. I have friends that do it, so I got interested. I also signed up for courses and all of that. That's a story for another day. So I started doing product design as well. And then I would get clients. This is when I started understanding the concept of clients and all of that. So I would get clients. I started having actual clients because I did it for a while. Being a product designer, I did it for, a couple of years, 2, 3 years ish. But then I would also get clients reach out to me, companies, after building this website prototypes, they would still need me to develop it somehow. And I didn't know how to say no, which is part of, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I didn't even understand the idea of networking or collaboration and all of that. So I would turn gigs down for that reason, or sometimes they wouldn't want to work with me because they need someone that can do both the design and the development. So yeah, like I say again, being a problem solver, I started thinking, how can I better the client's experience? How can I, you know, do both design and as well development? I don't have the head for writing codes. Yeah, so I started looking for a better way to build websites without, too much hassle or code and all of that. It was a bit of up and down because there were lots of tools. I saw a couple, but then Webflow stood out. Somehow, magically, Webflow stood out. Shout out to Maguire. I stumbled upon his video on, YouTube. I think also, one time my partner reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you seen this guy's video?" Because he posted a video on Twitter, Maguire also, an excerpt when he was with Webflow University, those his short clips. So I watched it and I loved it because he was teaching in the way I like. He's fun. He adds lots of, fun stuff to his content. And I love it because I don't like situations or places or things being too serious. And he wasn't that too serious kind of person. So you are learning and you are laughing, which is what I like. I'm like, okay, this is good. What is Webflow? I started making research, Webflow. I didn't know how I consumed all of his content. I was watching because when I go in on something, I go all in. If I want to learn something, that is why I say I can do all things if given the right opportunity or whatever. So I went all in. I took days, I took weeks, I took months. I was learning, I was grinding myself, Webflow University and all of that just to get better, just to meet client expectation as well. So that was how my journey to Webflow started. And I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted because it gives you opportunity to get creative. From a blank canvas, you can design, things, you can build amazing layouts, you can build robust websites. And I love challenges like that. So yeah, that was how I transitioned into Webflow. Graphics, product, Webflow.
Yeah, and now there's YouTube and all sorts coming. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but I'm intrigued to jump into your failures. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Yeah. Okay. Failure number one, not understanding the business of freelancing.
This is a big one. Not understanding the business of freelancing. Okay. So for this, like I said earlier, I started Webflow. I just stumbled upon it and I started digging deep. Now, when I want to do something, I do it from a place of understanding, which is also a weakness somehow for me because when I am all in on something, I go all in, ignoring other parts. While I was learning Webflow, I was learning it just to understand the tool and how to build better websites. So I wasn't really focusing on the business of it, getting clients, reaching out to clients or how clients can find me, how companies can find me. I didn't think too much about those parts, and it affected me, it affected me because I'm like, okay, because what I did, the strategy I used was how I was able to tackle that in a way was because of my optimism, I was building already built websites. live website. I would build it out and I'll push it out there saying, hey, guys, this is what Webflow can do, blah, blah, blah. So I was just doing it from a place of, oh God, this is amazing. This is what have done. So I did not really pay attention to the business side of it because sometimes I would hear people or freelancers hear the amount they charge on projects. I'll be like, what? Is my own Webflow different? What is going on? What am I not doing right? Things like that. So yeah, it was something that affected me for a while until I started paying attention to the business side of it. So yeah, I think it was a failure because it did affect me. Like, there's a whole lot to this part because I think there are still tiny parts that also I'm still trying to work on as regards to that, the business of not just Webflow, anything it is I'm getting into. Even the starting of a YouTube channel, there is a business side to it as well. Everything has like the business side to it. So yeah, so not understanding the business side was something that weighed me down for a while because there are bills to be paid, right? I've got bills, I've got rent, I've got this, and I've got that. So enough of the excitement, dude. Someone has to pay for these bills, and yeah.
Okay, what is the biggest takeaway you had from, learning the business of freelancing then?
The biggest takeaway I would say is it is okay to be excited about a thing. It is okay to genuinely learn a thing like I did because in those moments I was able to learn things the right way. Because right now there are lots of people that don't go in depth into learning a thing, but then they are all flashy about it. But when you end up working with them, you see, hey, this person didn't even know this particular thing to the depth of it. So it's okay to learn a thing. However, there should be a balance to learning it and also learning to, I wouldn't say put yourself out there, understanding the business of it, which deals with sales, understanding sales, closing the clients, like closing deals and all of that, making the right decisions and, pricing and all of that things. Yeah. So you need to also understand the sales part of it. You need to understand the client part of it.
That makes sense. I think there's like a balance between like being a creative person that loves, the actual, color palettes and typography and like all of that stuff. And then obviously when it comes to, development, there's a whole load of hard skills that you need to
Yeah,
learn in order to actually develop a
yeah,
website
mhm,
properly. But then there's, how do you manage your soft skills?
yeah,
How do you communicate with a client? Like when it comes to a sales perspective, are you genuinely trying to understand their problem or are you just trying to sell to them?
yeah,
And is that going to push them away or attract them to you?
yeah,
And, there's a kind of like a lot of things that you learn as you get rejected
yeah.
on sales calls and you're
Mhm.
like, wait, I thought they wanted to work with me and now they don't. And I've clearly like put them off somehow and I don't really understand what I've done. So, and then you look into it and you find Chris Doe and the future and, yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have any tips for like resources or anything that you're like, if you want to get better at the soft skills type of things to actually understand like, how to get work and how to maybe, get over the line with sales calls and stuff? Do you have anything that you think would help
For me,
anyone?
I would say I don't like one thing about me. I don't like lots. I don't like lots of options. Chris do work best for me. He has lots of amazing content on all of these, like everything. He's an amazing person. He's like the best of the best. I like him. I consume his content a lot, and I think he's one person I would recommend anytime, any day when it comes to understanding personal branding, when it comes to sales, when it comes to closing deals. So yeah, Chris do. And that's it.
He's the
Me,
man. He's the
I'll tell
man.
you.
I definitely think as well, though, it sounds like the more you did the work, David, the more you actually understood what your systems and processes were. And I think to a certain extent, like you don't need to sell if you're just confident doing what you do. Like, if you're struggling to work out a tool and people ask you questions and you're like, yeah, that's a good question. And you're literally
That's a
like trying to
question.
stall. Good question. I'll get back to you on that one because I'm not too sure how this tool
Yeah.
works. It's like red flag
Huge.
and yeah, like and I think to a certain extent clients can smell bullshit, right? Like it's pretty obvious
100%.
whether it, like if someone's like, here's my process, here's what we're going to do, boom, 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 boom. Does that suit you? They're not trying to
Yeah.
sell, but they've just kind of like sold you by virtue of just saying like, here's how we're going to work
Yeah.
together. Like, is that the type of thing that is going to work? And I think that comes just after understanding your systems and processes from just doing them a lot,
Yeah.
like and working them out.
Yeah.
But it does sound like you've explored so many different tools that maybe it's hard to understand what your systems and processes are with all of those different tools. So how do you manage being a curious person who wants to explore and like understand how things work, but then also being someone that's known for a particular tool or being known as a particular freelancer that can solve a particular problem?
For me, I think everything happens. The first part, the idea of, clients and you talking with clients and all of that. For me, I feel it comes with experience because you have to go through those failures. Just as we've said, there's always that point where you mess things up with clients and you're lost in a call and you don't know what else to do, what else to say, or whatever, or what you're talking about. Okay. But then when you go through that process, now you've learned, you have to go back to the drawing board and understand what that person is talking about. So when you ever see it again in the future, you can sort that part out. So with time, because I always tell people reach out to me, hey, how do I close? How do I, price? How do I price? And do I need to have a price card or something? I just tell them, look, this is how I do it. But for you, you can just enjoy your own process. This is how I do it. I'll explain how I do it. But for you, enjoy your process. Go through your failures, go through it with the client. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to be perfect. Okay, so for the second phase about, you talked about tools. And yeah, like you said, I've worked with tools and I like to try out things every now and then. I love it a lot. It's one thing that keeps me sane, but I like to be a god at it. When I learn something, I learn it to the last because how my brain processes things is different from how someone else's brain does. My brain takes information and breaks it down to the most simplest form. It has to be very simple because I'm not that too smart. So my brain has to like break it down to the most simplest form for me to understand. By doing so, it helps me understand in my own way, and it also helps me explain because I also love to teach. I love to, do lots of educative stuff. And for me, it's just Webflow when it comes to building websites. I've had clients come to me for e-commerce stuff and I am not a professional at it. I would always say, hey, you may want to explore other options, maybe someone else or Shopify and all of that. I'm not an expert with e-commerce, building e-commerce sites. For now, I don't have any interest. I had an interest one time to learn Shopify, but I just felt that would be me digressing. I need to like stick with a niche. I need to like just explore this particular thing I'm doing for a while. Then if I ever see the need. So yeah.
I see what you're saying. That makes tons of
Yeah.
sense. I think like a lot of the time there's like loads of shiny tools out
Yeah.
there. And I think it's quite important to know the landscape of tools, but have one thing that you're particularly proficient at and that you're known for. So in my head, that makes a ton of sense. And also, yeah, e-commerce, it's a whole other ball game.
It's a whole
So
other ball game.
it's a whole other ball game. So good luck dabbling with that. Unless you're going to go all in, it's kind of hard. Okay, tell me about failure number 2. Being too positive made you lose a good gig.
Okay. So first thing, I'm a jolly good fellow, and I don't know. Maybe it was weird for the client. Maybe it was too good to be true, what I was saying or how I was saying it, or my background, where I'm coming from. I don't know. Yeah, it made me lost a gig because I was all excited. I was all positive and I wanted to really work on the project. But then it didn't go well just for some weird reason. I'm like, okay, was I too forward? Was I too positive? Was I showing too much interest or am I being too pushy? Like what?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. It wasn't even about pricing. It wasn't even about that because if I want to work with a client, I try to be so interested. I try to want to understand the problem. I try to want to, deal with the problem and find a solution. First, I worry less about the pricing. The pricing always comes, but then that is not a major focus for me sometimes. So I would say I was trying to help trying to take the burden off you and solve your problem. But for some weird reason, my being too positive wasn't good enough, or I don't know what the problem was. But yeah, that was what I sensed. And not just about that, it has happened a couple of times, generally with other aspects of life. So I wouldn't categorically say a failure, but then it is a thing. Yeah, it is a thing because people are people, people can be weird. And
People can be
people can
weird,
be really
for
weird.
sure.
And,
Wait, can I ask you
uh-huh.
though, did you lose the gig? You'd agreed to work with this person, you'd agreed a
Yeah.
budget, you'd agreed a scope, and then they ghosted you because maybe they felt that you overpromised and they were just like, wait, this is all just too cheap and it sounds too good. And I'm just like, wait, what? And then they ghosted you? Or like, break down like what not getting the gig
Okay.
looked
So they
like.
didn't ghost me. I love that they had balls. Can I say balls?
You can say whatever you want on this podcast.
I love that they had the balls to tell me that, oh, okay. Funny enough, the project has started, and I was so excited about it. And, it was both design and development. So I was still on the design phase, and invoice has been sent. 50% has been paid. This is the catch. 50% has been paid to me. And a few days later, we were going well with the project. Then he just sent a message or an email or something, you know, saying how, oh, okay, it's not going to work, that found someone else and all of that kind of email, find someone else kind of email. I'm like, oh, it broke me. I'm not gonna lie, because I felt bad. I felt like, oh, okay, so I'm not that too good enough. What is the problem? I don't know. I didn't know what the problem was up until this moment, because as of that time, I came out to be like the number one on his list. He had other people as well. So during our first call, we were all pumped to, all of that. So I don't know what happened with him, along the line, and he just said, okay, yeah, he found someone better, and all of that. I'm like, great.
Oh man, that's such a weird
Yeah,
situation.
it was.
Like you'd already started working
Yeah, it
together,
was so weird.
and then obviously he'd like paid the 50%, and you kept that 50%, right?
No, I wasn't supposed to send it back. No, he was so kind to say, hey, you can keep the 50%. Yeah, you can, because we've worked for a while, and I was all in on it. I was all communicating. I was all, hey, this is the updates, and all of that. Being too forward and being too quick or too fast or too, I don't know, fast paced, all energetic about it. And I don't know, for some weird reason, I just don't know. But yeah, I picked up the lessons from the situation, and I, got sad for a while, for some days or something. But then I just, you know, go again.
Wait, okay, I'm confused. What was the key lesson with this experience for you?
The key lesson I would say is always be yourself, regardless, man. Like I said, people are people. People can be weird. Always be yourself. Sometimes, I don't know, you cannot, I wouldn't, for the sake of that, try to not be a positive person or try to change who I am. There are soft skills to be learned, yes, but that shouldn't change who you are as a person. Yeah, you can be an introvert and be an amazing salesperson. Soft skills, things you've learned. You can be an extrovert, all hype, and still learn other things, but it shouldn't change who you are as a person. So the takeaway for me is just things happen, just move on. These things happen.
That makes sense. I think sometimes, regardless of your systems and processes, sometimes life
Yeah.
happens and there's stuff going on behind the scenes that you just don't
Yeah.
know a lot of the time. Like everyone's got their own shit going
Yeah.
on. I had an experience where a client ghosted me for weeks and I was so confused. I was like, we're working together, there's a tight deadline. Like, what is happening? And then it turned out that this person had left the company and they'd had like this huge bust up, and it was like this person had left, and suddenly the project was like, well, we don't need this
Oh,
website redesign anymore. But like that type of stuff just
yeah.
happens, and it's bizarre, and you're kind of in the mixer as a
Yeah.
freelancer. Yeah, I think sometimes we take things personally when actually they might not even be about you sometimes. Like it's weird. It's so weird. So
That's it.
Yeah.
It might not really be about you. It could just be life just happened, because you do not know the other side of the story. You just know that it has happened. How you take it, this is what you can control. You just have to either be depressed for a very long time if you want to, or you quit if you want to. This is the things you can control, or you can just move on to the next.
And I would say as well, though, that, it's important to say that a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are
Mhm.
freelancers. And I think it's risky to say, like, oh, freelancing is like you choose when and where you work and you choose how
Oh,
much you earn. And let's be real. Sometimes you might just want to do the creative work. You might just want a regular salary.
yeah,
Maybe you don't want to deal with all of this client
yeah,
stuff. And that's where, like, working in a full-time job in an agency, you are kind of protected from that a little bit. There's maybe a project manager in between. You might have client calls, but you're not dealing with the money
yeah.
stuff. You're just
Business
doing the
part of it.
work. And I think that's an important thing to say, is that, like, if you are someone that really gets affected, like, emotionally by the ups and downs of freelancing, and frankly the ups and downs of just, other people, their lives, like sometimes you might get ghosted
Mhm,
and it's quite weird, and there's like all sorts of stuff that happens as a freelancer that doesn't always
mhm.
happen when you're working in an agency. So I think it's just important to say that, like, deciding, what you want to prioritize is quite important,
Yeah,
I think, as a Webflow.
yeah.
Do you have anything to add there? Sorry.
Yeah, people always see the good part, on social media. This is the client I got. I closed a 10K deal, a 15, 20K deal, and all of that. But there are backstories to all of that. There are parts people don't see. Like I like to be real. I like to be engaging with people. And I tell them, hey, this is not all black and white. The world of freelancing, in my experience, it could be different for someone else. For me, sometimes I stay months without having a gig. It happens like all the time, or a gig could last 3, 4 months, and you thought it would just be something that would last for a month. I have a gig currently. I have a client project I'm working with for a church website. We started since February, January, late January. Up until this moment, it's still going. And it is mentally draining because I am still there. So taking on something new is most likely not the case, even though I can and I will and I want to. But then because I am still in this world, it is a mess. It is a whole mess for me because the project is not a small project, it's a big church and there's lots of things to go on. And all of these things, sometimes I'm like, oh, Christ. Yeah, it is a lot. There are parts people don't talk about. But then after the project has finished, I might just come on and say, hey, look what I just did. I just closed the project. I just finished this project. But it took a while. It took a long time. It took months. And, I most likely wouldn't say that. But if I'm talking to someone one on one, I always air my view and say, hey, bro, freelancing is not as smooth as people say it is. It can be for some people, but in my experience, if I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to tell you how it is for me. It is not entirely smooth. Sometimes I know amazing designers and creatives that work for companies and are earning well, are doing very well. I also know amazing designers and developers that are very good, but they don't understand freelancing at all. They are just good, very good at what they do, but they don't know how to start, where to start. So I would say it takes a whole lot of balls to go into the world of freelancing and putting yourself out there. Putting yourself out there is another world on its own. Trust me, it's crazy.
Yes, agreed. There's some insanely talented people that are not freelancers because they just don't want to deal with all of that stuff. Maybe they don't have the skill sets. Maybe they just don't want to. But yeah, I do think it is a bit misleading if you just look at Twitter or whatever, and people put these pie charts of how much money they made that year, and you do not see the sweat and stress and years that it took to get to a depth of skill set in order to do that. Like, if you come out the gates as a freelancer just thinking, oh, I'm just going to make loads of money, good
Good
luck.
luck
Good
with that.
luck. Good luck with that. And salute you if that happens. But, maybe you won't be tweeting as much as you think you will about the pie charts. But yeah, important to say that.
Yeah,
Tell me about failure number 3, placing more focus on tools rather than people and connection.
that is one hell of a failure a while back. First of all, people are everything. People are everything. So whatever tool you're learning, whatever tool I'm learning, whatever tool I was learning, and I'm still learning in the future, in the present, I am learning that tool to use it for a company. And who are those people in the company? Who are those things in the company? People. People are everything, in business, in learning a new tool, in starting a startup. You could be building a startup and you would fail to understand people strategy or people management or people skills. I'll give you an example. Okay, when I started, like I said earlier, when I started doing Webflow, even design, graphics, and all of that, I was learning for the tool. I wasn't paying much attention, even though, somehow I'm a people person. I do well with people easily, like it doesn't cost me much to strike up a conversation or be in the flow or be life of the party and all of that. So I would say, because it is me, because it is my world, it is almost easy to come out of that box of learning tools and not focusing on people. I know good people, very good people that are very good with their craft, but are not good with people. And if you're not good with people, that's a problem. It's a big problem, because everything revolves around people. Buying and selling revolves around people. Webflow is pushing out updates. Who are using Webflow as a tool? It's people. If you take away people from anything, it's dead. So it was easy, like I said, because it's me, it was almost easy to come out of it, because I somehow am used to dealing with people. I know how to, it's just for me to brush up the soft skills around dealing with people, which I did. But then it may not be the case for someone else. It may not be the case for lots of people. I have a friend who is building a startup, an amazing idea. He's doing the coding. The guy is amazing. But then he's lacking the whole people thing. He thinks it's just a straightforward thing to just maybe build it up and sell it to an investor, millions of dollars and all of that. I'm like, whoa, bro, it doesn't always work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to be able to network. You have to be able to connect. You have to be able to, have people skills, because at the end of the day, people are everything. That's just it.
Okay, powerful stuff there. So let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, David, I get that. I'm learning all the tools, but I don't have a network. I don't have contacts. I live in a rural town. Like, I'm not near the capital city of my country. Like, how do they network? Like, what does that look like? What practical advice can you give them?
Practical advice would be, it can be an advice. However, because of the fact that we are different as humans, some people are just who they are. Regardless of what I say to them or what I tell them to do, they still just don't do it because of who they are as a person. Like I use the scenario of someone being an introvert. He doesn't like to go out. He doesn't like to post or put out his work out there. He doesn't like to create space for his work, and I always tell them, this is the thing I always tell them: do it for the sake of your brand. Do it for the sake of your brand, not for yourself. I understand that you are an introvert, fine, but you are also a brand. And if you want to excel at this thing you're doing, if you want to excel as being an amazing Webflow developer, freelancer, or whatever thing you're doing, you have to be able to leverage networks, social media, on-site meetups, because I do attend meetups. I attend meetups a lot. I connect with people a lot. It may not be for the moment. It could be for the future. You never know where you see someone tomorrow and you're like, oh, okay. I like just now I'm talking to you. I met you 2 years ago at the Barcelona meetup, Webflow meetup. If it wasn't for that meetup, I'm not sure we'll be here talking somehow. So these are the perks, and there are lots of advantages to it. So even when I don't want to attend, but I have to attend just for the sake of my brand that I'm investing in or investing on. So the advice would be, do it for the sake of your brand, not for the sake of yourself. Don't know if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think separating, when people say, oh, I don't like, sharing my work.
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about your brand. And I think that's quite helpful to like separate that, because it's a little bit like, I don't know if you know this whole thing about Sasha Fierce and Beyonce.
Yeah.
Like Beyonce will go on stage and she'll be like,
Yeah.
bang, Sasha
Bang,
Fierce.
bang, bang.
Like that is maybe you online. And it's not saying that it's a completely different personality per se, but it's a different version of you.
Yeah,
You know, it's like you don't act the same with the queen that you act, or the king, sorry, I should say,
exactly.
with someone with someone that's like, I don't know, a friend that you bump into in a supermarket. You wouldn't behave the same in those two different situations,
Exactly.
but it's still you and it's still an authentic version of you. Vice versa, I think the same can be true with putting yourself out there online and in person at, meetups and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Definitely worth visiting different meetups. There are free meetups all the time, guys. Like if someone's listening and they're just like, oh yeah, I'd really like to get involved with, going to meet other people that I could collaborate with, or potentially like, client meetups where there might be like other businesses going. There are meetups happening the whole
All the
time in
time.
person, and in person meetups are huge to, shake hands with someone, and then you start following them on social and you comment on their
Yeah.
feed, and then suddenly opportunities come. So I do think that's important to say. Get yourself in these. There's free meetups, there's paid meetups, but there are meetups happening all the time. And if there aren't meetups happening anywhere near you, then guess what? Maybe it's your chance to step up and do a meetup. Who knows? Okay,
Exactly.
sorry, do you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, just a very short, based on this whole idea of meetups and going out, because I moved here in Netherlands, Amsterdam, and I kind of noticed that the Webflow community is a little bit cold. It's not as, robust as it is maybe in the UK or, somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, so what then can I leverage on? What else can I learn to still up my chances within the country? Because if there is one skill that I think we as humans should have, is continuous learning as a skill. Wherever you are, place, location, you should be able to discern and know that particular area and see the things that you can do, because you cannot use what you used to do before, bring it to a new environment and expect it to work. It might be a little bit different. So yours will just be kind of like a waste. It's a good skill, but it's not needed here. So what more can you do? So I learned about a particular tool which is widely used around here. And it's the tool I'm currently trying to figure out and learn. Speaking of which, I had to like check meetups and all of that. I even attended a physical meetup some weeks ago in Rotterdam, and it was amazing. I connected with lots of developers there, and I even had someone mentor me. Like I have someone that is currently mentoring me on the tool. He's an expert and all of that. So it still boils down to the same thing. Imagine I had just said, and that day I didn't feel like going out, but I had to just do it because I know what I want. It is for the sake of the fact that I need to learn this thing. It's still a brand problem, a brand perception. I had to go, met people, even though the language was a little bit a barrier because I don't speak Dutch at the moment. I had to still go and just connect. Hey, this is me. I'm trying to learn this. Yo, what's up? I don't speak your language, but bro, So yeah, and it was amazing. And I'm on the journey right now. So yeah, it still boils down to networking and going out and putting yourself out there. So yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Really important to say that. This is advice for someone that's, maybe wanting to be like David as well. I think that's important to say. If you want to be a freelancer that is freelancing with particular clients, freelancing with different agencies, this whole idea of going to meetups and being active is quite powerful. But I think it's important to say that if you're not the type of person that if you're like, I cannot, like I would cringe up at the idea of going to a meetup. Like that is the worst possible thing I could think about doing with my life. And I just cannot stand putting anything on social media. I just want to do the work. I just want to do the creative. Like I don't want to talk about clients. I don't want to think about money that much. Like I just want to do. Then potentially working in-house for a company or working for an
Yep.
agency in a full-time role might suit you
Yep.
better. Okay, David, are you ready for the most difficult question I've asked you so far?
I'm always ready, ever ready, born ready.
Okay, what is your next failure going to be?
My next failure would be failing at learning the tool that I'm currently learning. I'm definitely going to fail, and I'm going to fail building applications. I'm going to fail with, this new journey. I'm looking forward to the failures, which is, starting and not finishing, starting off a course and not finishing, starting off a YouTube video and not finishing. These are like petty failures, but I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to stop. It could take a year, 2 years. I don't care. But I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to be an expert at this. But yeah, and I'm also going to fail with meeting up clients' expectations in this new journey. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
So there's some failures to come, but let's not get anxious about it. It's going to be great. You're going to have loads of lessons learned. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of challenges ahead, but a lot of hurdles to overcome.
Definitely.
And I'm sure you will after a few tries. David, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you for sharing as vulnerably as you have on the Webflow podcast.
Thank you so much, Jack. This is indeed an honor for you to have me on this podcast. I am so really excited, very happy about it, and I'm looking forward to the amazing things that you're gonna do. And I see that on the 27th you'll be flying to San Francisco to go. Oh man, that is like, geez, you have no idea. I wish I was you right now.
Trust me, you don't. Other areas of my life.
Yeah, it's
But
amazing, man.
anyway,
It's amazing. I am looking forward to the podcast or the interview or the gist. I'm looking forward to it all. I'll most likely be the first to watch because yeah, it's a big deal. Congratulations. It is.
thanks. That's really kind of you to
Yeah,
say
it is.
that. Yeah, I'm very excited to meet Vlad and the
Yeah.
team. God, it's Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
Yikes.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah.
Thanks you for coming on here and sharing everything you have.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you. Thank you so much.